If you are just diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, I want you to pause with me for a second. Take a slow breath in and let it out. I know how overwhelming that appointment can feel. The words replaying in your head, and the moment your life suddenly feels split into a before and after. I remember sitting in that chair, not as the nurse explaining a diagnosis, but as the patient hearing, "You have MS." And what hit me wasn't the textbook definition. It was the questions about my future, my independence, and the life that I thought I had mapped out. By the end of this video, you're going to know how to actually live your best life from an MS diagnosis, not from theories or cliches, but from someone who actually understands it clinically and personally. Hi, welcome back. So today we're going to go a little lower in the sense that I'm going to bring it down, going to get some woo-woo because it needs to be done. So, it needs to be done. Start off with the first point, the emotional whiplash that no one prepares you for. Okay. Before we talk about medications, lifestyle, or staying positive, we need to talk about what actually hits first. Because the hardest part of an MS diagnosis isn't really sometimes the physical, it's the emotional. One of the biggest surprises after diagnosis isn't the physical symptoms, although the flare did totally suck. It's the emotional whiplash, right? At first you may feel numb, almost detached, and then the fear and the panic creeps in, and then the guilt for feeling relieved. And for those of you, there's a lot of you that were going through months and maybe even years of tests and scans trying to figure out what the hell was going on with you. A few days after I was diagnosed, I told myself I needed to be strong, but that's also kind of maybe the nurse push through mentality. But I thought that meant staying calm, rational, composed, but soon after came a little denial and maybe even a little humor with that too. But strength doesn't mean suppressing emotion. It means allowing yourself to grieve. And let's face it, while this isn't exactly death of a loved one, it is in a way it's the death of part of you. You're grieving the certainty you once had. You're grieving the version of the future you'd imagined. You're grieving the trust that you always knew you could rely on your body to cooperate. And grief definitely doesn't follow a schedule. Some days you'll feel empowered, and other days you'll feel like the rug has been pulled out from under you. Or, like I've said many times before, it can feel like being punched in the stomach. That doesn't mean you're going backward. It means you're processing. And I want to say this clearly. You do not have to rush acceptance. There's no deadline for this, and there never will be. Do not owe anyone positivity, because let's face it, that's the last thing you want to hear from somebody is, "Oh, just smile." They may empathize, but they will never fully know what you're experiencing. You do not need to look on the bright side right now. And if someone tells you that, you can honestly, at this point, you can tell them to suck it. What does help early on is limit your late night Googling. God knows if you aren't Googling, then someone in your family will be. And they're gonna immediately send you some miracle European found cure for MS. I may have gotten some. Keep in mind I love my family dearly though. Nothing against my family. It's just, Write questions down first instead of spiraling. And talk to someone who understands chronic illness. Give yourself permission to say, this is hard and I may need help. That's a hard one, but do that. Because once you allow yourself to truly feel the weight of this diagnosis, that's ultimately when the healing begins. Okay, next part. Being the CEO of your healthcare. Once the emotional dust settles, even just a little, the next wave hits, and that's decisions. So take a deep breath, and this is where things can start to feel very overwhelming very quickly. As a nurse, like I said, this is what I'm all about. MS is not something that you manage passively, and you don't just show up to appointments and really just hope for the best. You have to be an active participant in your care. So, again, this is where you play the role of the CEO. The neurologists, think of them as the key partner, and ideally, as I've said before too, someone who specializes in MS. But they are only one part of the puzzle. You're gonna have an expansive care team, and that can also be your primary care provider, a physical or occupational therapist, mental health support, and that can come in all shapes and forms. It doesn't have to specifically be a licensed therapist. And then also other therapies, speech therapy, vision specialists, things like that. And the last therapy, of course, are your disease modifying therapies, otherwise your medications. And let's just pause here for a minute, because this obviously would be the absolute most overwhelming part. When you're newly diagnosed, the medication discussions can obviously feel very intense. The names are unfamiliar, they're large, they're complicated, and the risks feel scary. The pressure to decide can feel heavy. So here's the truth from both a nurse and a patient. Early treatment has changed the MS landscape dramatically. This is honestly a much better time to have MS than I feel like it was even 20 years ago. Now, keep in mind, these medications don't cure MS, but they do reduce relapse rates. They'll slow progression and protect brain and spinal cord tissue. Also to note, you deserve time to understand your options. You also want to ask questions. So ask questions like, what is the goal of this medication? What are the risks versus the benefits for me? What monitoring is required? What happens if this isn't the right fit? And those are just to name a few. You are not being difficult by asking questions. You are informing yourself. You're being the CEO of your company, of your body. MS does not take away your autonomy. If anything, it requires you to step into it more fully. And that's what advocacy looks like. Okay, third part. So redefining a best life without having any shame. After the appointments and the information overload, the dust kind of starts to settle a little bit. There's a quieter question that starts creeping in. So what does my life look now? At some point after the diagnosis, many people ask, will I ever feel normal again? Will I act normal again? And the honest answer is, life may not return exactly to what it was before. But if you've already experienced a flare, you've probably seen ultimately the worst of it, and that can kind of be encouraging. But it can still be meaningful, fulfilling, and joyful, just not in the exact way originally pictured. Living your best life with MS means redefining success and ultimately, again, I've said it a million times, pivoting. Before my diagnosis, I equated productivity with worth. 12-hour shifts. Pushing through exhaustion, ignoring warning signs, because that's the nurse's mindset. I mean, even going 12 hours without pain, terrible. MS forced me to listen though, and at first it felt like a loss. But over time it became clarity. Energy is not infinite with MS. And instead of seeing that as limitation, I began to see it as guidance. I started asking, what truly deserves my energy today? What can wait? Maybe just do one load of laundry. What drains me versus what sustains me? Where am I emotionally? What's my stress level? Etc., etc. So your best life may include more rest, more boundaries, more intentional choices, fewer obligations that don't align with your values. That's not giving up, that's evolving. Part 4, daily choices that add up over time. So here's something that hopefully you might find empowering, maybe a little inspiring, what have you. While MS is unpredictable, you are not powerless. Small daily decisions compound over time in ways that truly matter. MS can feel unpredictable, but there are areas where your daily choices matter actually more than you realize. And one of those is movement. So movement isn't about punishment, and it's not about pushing. It's about preservation. And I totally find that important, and that's probably ultimately why I'm not really at the bedside anymore. Gentle strength training, walking, stretching, guided PT, maybe even some stuff in the pool could help. It can all help improve balance, reduce stiffness, can protect mobility, definitely in the long term. And keep in mind the goal here, it's not about perfection, it's simply about consistency. The next part can be nutrition. So there is no single MS diet that cures the disease, unfortunately. Some things can help and some things may hurt. Alcohol and sugar. So be wary of extremes. As I've said, most of us can all agree to moderation. Nourish your body with whole foods, hydration, gut support, gut health. No leaky gut. I say gut a lot. Think support, not restriction. Here's a way to think of it. You want 95 octane in your car, not 70. And then, of course, there's sleep. Sleep is foundational. Poor sleep can worsen your fatigue, pain, mood, cognition. And if sleep is an issue, you really need to address it as soon as you possibly can. Naps? Naps kick ass. Love me some naps. Nap all the time. Stress management is another, because stress doesn't cause MS, but it absolutely worsens symptoms. Regulating your nervous system is not optional with MS. And that can mean if you have to have some actual emotional, some sort of supportive therapy, doing some meditation or breath work, gentle routines, and maybe a little walk around the block as an example, and saying no to anyone without explanation. Setting boundaries, ultimately, it's going to be what's going to preserve everything in terms of your stress level. And I certainly want to place emphasis with the setting boundaries if you happen to be in a very intense work position, and or maybe if you're in healthcare, caregiving. Obviously, as a nurse, I understand how stress impacts inflammation. But as a patient, I learned that peace of mind, peace of heart, it's protective. The next part, understanding flares without living in fear. One of the most anxiety-producing parts of MS is learning your body all over again. It can be very interesting, to say the least. Every sensation suddenly feels suspicious, and if you're kind of in a flare, pseudo-flare, it can certainly feel weird. One of the hardest parts of MS is learning what your new normal is going to be. And thinking, and sometimes every new sensation can trigger anxiety. So you'll be sitting there, maybe getting in your head, going, is this a relapse? Is this permanent? Should I call my doctor? But education gives power. A true relapse involves new neurological symptoms that have lasted more than 24 hours without infection or overheating. Pseudo-flares happen with illness, stress, heat, or exhaustion, and they ultimately resolve when the trigger resolves. So having some preparation can certainly help. It can help you know who to call, know when to seek urgent care or ER if it needs to that. Hopefully it won't come to that. Keep medication lists updated, and ultimately just kind of have a plan. Just know that ultimately flares are not failures. They're just the shittiest part of the disease process, and it's nowhere near a reflection of how well you're doing. And another part, mental health of MS is not optional. I've said it once, I've said it again. I'm a broken record, so be it. This is a part people don't always talk enough about, because MS doesn't just affect nerves, it affects identity. MS impacts how safe you feel in your own body, and anxiety and depression are common, very common in fact. And don't think of that as anything in terms of a personal shortcoming. I needed support. Thankfully, I had a family around me that supported me. And sometimes maybe I might even need some support, and I just don't even realize it. But that said, find your people no matter what. It doesn't mean you're weak. I don't feel weak. This is a heavy situation that we're in. It's a heavy disease. So it helped me separate fear from fact. And hopefully you can find that too. Community can help you know that you're not alone. And that's, I think, in a weird way, one of the greatest things about this. The other thing that I totally abide by, and maybe hopefully some of you out there do too, I have a really sick sense of humor. And if you can't laugh, and if you especially can't laugh at yourself, then who can you laugh at? You gotta make some fun out of it. But you deserve support no matter what. You don't need to carry this silently. That's dead weight that you will add up over time, and it's gonna leave you exhausted. So drop that dead weight and find some support. The next part, planning a future with intention. So let's challenge one of the most damaging myths about MS, that your future is somehow smaller now. Planning is not pointless. Your future is what you want it to be ultimately. People with MS, they work, they travel, they get married, raise families, of course, they build businesses, they do all sorts of things, even change careers. They thrive, ultimately. Modern treatments have reshaped outcomes. Organizations like the Multiple Sclerosis Association of America and the National Multiple Sclerosis Society, they offer education, advocacy, research. There's lots of resources on both those websites. And planning doesn't mean expecting the worst. It means you're protecting your future self. So that may include insurance literacy. It may mean emergency planning. It may mean a flexible career path. Maybe financial preparation as a plan. That's empowerment. If you take nothing else from this video, please at least take this. Your diagnosis did not erase you. If you are newly diagnosed, hear this clearly. From my heart, from my soul. You are still you. MS may change how you move through the world, and literally, but it doesn't erase your worth, your dreams, your capacity for joy, any of that. When I was diagnosed, I thought I'd lost control. I was freaking out, panicked. But what I actually gained was intention. True. I learned to listen to my body. I learned definitely to protect my energy, preserve myself. I learned to prioritize what matters. Your life isn't over. It's just changing. It's going to be a little pivot, as I've said it a million times. I'm a broken record. I'm sorry. But you can live a full, meaningful, and empowered life with MS. If you're at the beginning of this journey, please leave a comment and tell me where you are. I would love to hear from you. I would love to offer guidance and support. But if you want guidance from a nurse who lives this every day, then subscribe, comment, like, reach out. You don't have to figure this out alone. And your story is still being written.